Hi guys, welcome back. So this is currently what the car sits like. I've done a few bits to it. As you know, a lot of it is documented, some of it is still in the pipeline and will be released soon. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was to upgrade the audio. And with these cars there was a few different levels of audio. So you had bass audio, which is the most basic level, which is what this has. So just the standard speaker in the front doors, and speakers in the rear parcel shelf. I'm not sure whether this one has the under-seat subs or not, but it's just the most basic one you can get. Then the next level up from that was the hi-fi audio. So hi-fi audio had tweeters in there and in there, and it also had additional tweeters in the back, and I think it had an amp. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Well, that was hi-fi, and then the step after that was Logic 7, which on LCIs is known as Harman Kardon, but it's the same system. On pre-LCI it's known as L7, and on post-LCI it's known as HK. And that had a center speaker. It had the tweeters. The LCIs had the Harman Kardon written on the speakers. The actual speakers themselves were different. They ran an amp, different wiring loom. It had underfloor subs, and they had additional speakers in the rear doors. So one in there, and the ones in the parcel shelf. And the really top level of audio was individual audio. So individual audio was, I think, 850 watt system with an amp, dedicated wiring loom, center speaker, tweeters, uprated speakers all round, speakers in the rear doors, additional speakers in the rear parcel shelf, and so on and so forth. So I wanted to source a system for an E90 or E91, E92. I managed to find a system from E93, which is similar for the most part, but it's missing the rear parcel shelf speakers and tweeters. So it's incomplete as far as putting it into a 90 is concerned, but the rest of the components are the same. So I was quoted £1,600 for the E93 individual audio system with wiring loom and everything else, which then meant I had to source the rear parcel shelf speakers, which I managed to find in the United States, which would have worked out about £200 including delivery and import to UK. And then I would have also needed these trims, window surrounds, to install the tweeters in there, and potentially a few other little bits and pieces which I'm forgetting, which are different on the E93 to E90. So it would have cost me probably about £2,000 plus coding. I would have done the fitting myself for the most part, but then coding I would have had to pay someone to do. So I was looking around, was sitting there on the internet as you do one evening, and I found E90 individual audio system complete with everything that I need for E90 for £1,500. Now the only issue with that was it actually came with a car. So I didn't mind that too much, because after actually considering spending about £2,000 on a sound system and being offered a complete car with individual audio sound system in it for £1,500, I really didn't mind. So there you go, individual audio from factory, and this here is a 325i in Le Mans Blue, 2008 model, fairly basic spec, M Sport, high mileage, 180,000 on the clock, and it has a failed water pump which will be replaced, and it's also missing some headlight washer jets, which I'll also be replacing at some point, and I'll upload a video on how to do that. So I've decided to buy the car. I obviously couldn't drive it home when I viewed it because the water pump was broken and the car would have overheated before I was able to make it home. But the guy who was selling it kindly offered to have it delivered by a recovery truck. So we made a deal at £1,700, and about 3 hours later the car was at my house. So here it is, and I think this is really going to be quite a cost-effective way of doing this upgrade on my car, because I can take the sound system out of this, put it into that, and then take the bass audio sound system out of this and put it into that, replace the water pump on it and sell this on. Chances are for a profit if it's a working car, because it's actually a really good car. So it's got new tyres all round, it's got discs and pads that were recently done. It's actually a 2-owner car from new. First owner had it until about 2 years ago, and then the second owner had it for about 2 years until the water pump packed up. So it's in fantastic condition. If anything, it's actually in much better condition than this was when I bought it. But it's a 325i automatic N53, which is absolutely no use to me. I actually offered it to my niece, but she's too young to get insured on it in the UK at this point in time, so the car will be going up for sale. But I'll do a separate video on this, just to explain what I've done with it, what the expenses were to repair it, and then how much it actually eventually will sell for. So watch this space. But for the time being, what I'm going to do is I will start with stripping this. We'll have the door cards off. I'll take the seats out because we'll need to get to the under seat subs. We will take the rear seats out because we need to get to the Loom. We'll take all the trims out from the boot. So all of that will need to be stripped out properly. All of the trims around there, all of the stuff around there to get to the wiring loom. And then once all of that's out, I'll make a start on this, and as I'm stripping this, I'll try and figure out what the actual differences are in the wiring looms, and to see whether we can reuse some of the old stuff with the system, or whether we need to just completely replace everything to do with the speaker system. So let's get cracking. I'll put this on a time lapse and carry on as we go along. So I managed to get a few things out. Got the seats out, got all the door panels off with the door speakers, and I managed to get to the subs. So here are the under seat subs, and that's the wiring connector for it, and it looks like it runs off of this loom here, and then there's a branch that's running to the front, which potentially goes into the door, and there's a branch that's running to the rear. So it's quite difficult to say exactly where, but there's that wire there, which I think might be going to the rear speakers. Might be this branch here, and then this entire loom runs up and into there, and on this side it's a similar story. That's that big loom there. It's running somewhere to the front of the car, so where the modules are, and here it's running that way and to the back along this channel here, and then you've got this wire coming up for the door speaker. So I think I might need to pull the glove box, all the covers underneath there. I'll probably end up having to take this off. I'll definitely have to take out the screen for the iDrive, because there's a center speaker just above it, which I'll need to get to the bolts to. And then I'll also need to take out the rear bench, the backs of the seats, and all the trims in the boot to get to the modules. So wish me luck, and let's carry on. Okay, so I've removed this side of the covers and gained access to all of this stuff. So this is the media loom, runs along there and down into there, mouth and TCU units since the car is a 2008. And on here, this looks like a TV tuner. So that comes off with these 8mm. So one there, and one there. Just for illustration purposes. So that comes off. Then you have the loom for it. Get that out of the way. Then the CD changer bracket. Again, 8mm. There, 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 and there. And you can take that off as well. Quite a heavy thing actually. And this is the loom for the CD changer. And this is the puppy that we're after, the amplifier for individual audio. And that's bolted down again, down there, and then there and there. So you can lift this bad boy up, disconnect it, and then trace the loom and see how much of it do we need. So in process of removing the loom, this is the main media loom. What I'll need to do is get this dismantled from the connector to the door and remove the loom in the door as well, both of the rear doors, because I don't think my one has them. And then as far as the rear end is concerned, it's not as scary as it looks. So this is the main loom. Those were the grounding blocks, grounding points. That goes in there with a 10mm. This is the fiber optics loops, all part of the same loom. Then you have all the connections running up into the roof lining that way. So these three go to the diversity module, this one here. And these three go to the shark fin, which is also here, just further up, just there. Fairly straightforward, right? Then this branch goes to the left speaker and this branch goes to the right speaker. There is also this antenna type connector which goes to that module there. I have no idea what it is. And this branch just runs under the foam behind there. So I'm not quite sure what that is. Might be something to do with the TV or radio signal, one of the two. And down here you have that big branch, so it sort of splits into three here. That big branch running to CD changer, to the amp, and to the TV receiver, I think. And this is MALF and TCU units for the iDrive connectivity. So I'll just disconnect them completely from here, along with all the brackets, all the clips and everything, and then it'll be ready to come out. So I'll have to get this out, like I said, from the connector to the door, get the door loom out on this side and on the other side, and then I'll have to get the subs out once I've had a little tidy up. So here are the subs. That's the connector to the sub. It runs off this main loom, and that main loom sort of runs along there and up that way somewhere. So I think next up what I'll do is remove the center console and try and trace where that loom goes, and I'll do the same on this side. So I'll try and get to this cable here, which is for the door speaker, remove that and then trace it that way and trace it this way and whatever it goes underneath there. So we're getting there, nearly there. Right, now on to removing the loom for the door. So get this big connector unbolted, 8mm, using a 1/4 inch drive with a shallow 8mm socket. There we are. And it looks like that's got its own separate branch. So we'll just move this clip back and it should release it. There we are. Done. And on this side, it goes through there. So if we peel this back and have a look what's inside. Same time clip here. And it's right at the back there, these two pins, 33 and 34. So I can either unpin it from here and pull just these two cables for the speaker through and remove it from the main loom, or I can completely take the loom out. So I'll make a decision on that later, but for the time being I'm going to leave it just here as it is and carry on stripping the rest of the loom. Okay, so doing some more wiring removal. Now this branch is for the rear right door, so I've removed it. Then it's on the same branch as the subwoofer under the right hand side seat. Then you've got this branch here and that branch is into two. So this branch runs along here and up behind there and all the way up there, but I've traced it to this wire here. So this plugs into here, just in there, and this goes through the chassis, just through that little hole there where that wire is, and out of here and clips on to this connector here at the top, just like on the back. So it's a separate connector that just clips on there. So that's fairly straightforward. I've just got to undo a cable tie that's up there somewhere that's preventing this branch from coming out. I'm going to cut it with some wire cutters or cutter pliers, and I should be able to get this out. Now this loom then runs up into there somewhere, so my next job is to trace it, and it's a fairly similar story on the other side. You've got the main branch that runs along here and up. I think you can just about see it running up just there. So that's the main one, and it's all here. So it goes up that way and into there, and I think into the back of the iDrive. And it's the same story on this side. So this big branch, this one, just runs around there and comes past the fuse box right at the top and comes out, plugs into there, and goes into there, into the, I think that's a terminator, to be fair. I don't think that's connected to anything, it's just plugged in there. So I'll be unplugging it as well. Right, so under here, this big branch splits into three. One goes to here, so that's the complete loom there. The other one runs across here and over and to the other side. It's that branch there. And the third one is this one here, which runs to the media connections in the armrest. So you've got the USB cable and the aux jack cable. And I might consider cutting the carpet here a little bit, just to get access to be able to remove that branch and pull everything through and out this way. Okay, so finally it's out. It took about 3 hours, maybe 4, maybe 5, I don't know. I wasn't counting, but I wasn't rushing either. So here we go. This is what the entire wiring loom looks like. So this bit here goes up the C-pillar, and I covered. These go to the shark fin, and these go to the diversity module, and that one goes to the brake light. Then this branch here is for the rear parcel shelf and the rear speakers, left side, right side, and this bit I think is a TV receiver of some sort. Then this big branch here goes to the boot on the left hand side, so amplifier with those big connectors, and CD changer, and I think a TV box as well. Then this branch here goes to the Bluetooth modules, Malfin TCU, or in my case I'll be installing a COM box in here, so that stays. Then carrying on further along the sill, this is the rear door loom. So I've removed the complete rear door loom rather than just removing this additional wire that it has, not to cut any of the insulation up, and it was just easier. So complete door loom, this additional wire for the door loom on the rear, and then we get here and we've got the sub under the seat, and this box here, no idea what this is for. It's probably something to do with the connectivity. So the CCC units had a USB interface and aux interface and a phone cradle in the center armrest, so I'm assuming that's something to do with that, but I'm not really bothered by that. It's no concern to me. This branch here runs to the left door, front one. That gets the power from another connector behind the glove box. That goes to the fiber optics terminator. I think that's a CAN interface. That goes into the door connector, and there's another box that this plugs into behind the glove box. Now coming back here and going along, this is that big one that goes under the carpet, that big branch that splits into 3, and one of them goes to the center armrest and to the communications bits, and I think if you follow it along it ends up in there, some of the wires. Then this one is the main connector for the head unit, CIC or CCC, whatever you've got. Then you've got the GPS antenna, and you've got the FM AM antenna on there as well. Then going along, this is the thing that runs over the transmission tunnel, and for which I've had to cut a little bit of the carpet to get this out. That basically powers the right hand side of the car. So there's the sub. This branch here runs up and into the door loom, front one, and this branch here runs to the back into the rear right door loom, and that is it. So this is what it all looks like laid out without any wires being cut. Oh, and last but not least is the center speaker. So the center speaker that's in the dash, this is the, no, not this one, that's not the connector for it. It's along this branch here, there it is. That's the connector for it. So as far as removing the loom is concerned, I guess a couple of additional points to be made. The little cut in the carpet I made was just there, and this is just simply to allow me to raise the carpet to get to the loom that runs over to the other side, to the branch of the loom that runs over to there, to the sub and to the rear door speaker, and up and that way into the front door speaker. Then I also had to remove the fuse box. which is this here. There's 4 bolts, 4 screws holding the fuse box. They're Torx screws. This is what they look like. I think they're T25 or a T30. Double check. They're a little bit difficult to get to. I'll flick the light on, then you can see the attachment points for the Torx. 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one is hidden behind here. But if you pull it down, you can actually get to it either from this side or from the top. From there. And you can remove the fuse box. Another tricky bit is getting to the little cable tie which holds the piece of the loom to the back here somewhere. I think it was around there actually. So actually cutting that cable tie was quite difficult. Getting access to it is what I mean by quite difficult. And the final point is getting the power. So the power to the media wiring harness and to the amp and to all the speakers runs down this big blue wire here, red wire with the blue stripe, so red blue wire. And I've traced it to the main car loom and up towards where the fuse box is, and it sort of comes out and it goes into this connector here into the back of the fuse box. Now my intention was to actually completely remove it and connect it into the fuse box, so everything is done in an OEM way, but I haven't decided whether there is a way of doing it by just adding this wire into my car's wiring harness. So I might strip this wire anyway from the donor car and run it directly to the battery with the fuse, or I might try and actually connect it to the fuse box. And just to show you where it connects in the boot, so there is a connector off the main wiring harness, and this is the end of it, and that just plugs into the media wiring harness on this end. So that's an issue that I'm going to have to overcome. I think that's it for part 1, because this episode is getting on a bit, and in part 2 I'm planning to strip the wiring harness out of my car, put it into this car. The wiring harness that I've taken out of this one I'll put it into my car. Once they're both out, I will compare them on the floor and highlight the differences and make note of that to see what needs to be done, and carry on from there. Hopefully I'll be able to actually get both cars to work eventually in episode 2. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.